identify and stop any activity that we consider illegal, unethical, or legally actionable activity. Which means, what is this, like Pokemon Go now, the new police force on the streets?
There's all discretion, right? So this is from USA Today. It talks about, it would take 30 days a year to read the terms of service. And then it says, to understand how the app can use data, it helps to know what data the app can collect. It says, for Android users, the game can access both the precise and general locations of the device, as well as its camera. Permissions inherently necessary to play the game. Because basically how it works, by the way, is use the camera and you are essentially using something hooked up to a version of like Google Maps, and you're going around and there's these certain Pokemon, which are creatures in the game that you catch, and they're at certain areas that's geospecific. So you could go downtown or something and there's supposed to be some rare Pokemon there. That's why there's women like finding bodies in rivers and like getting trapped in cemeteries and stuff, and people are like wandering around government locations and bases and stuff because someone said there was a Pokemon there. Now, what they do is they sell, presumably, that's how a lot of these apps and companies make their money, is they sell the so-called aggregate data, which would be like, oh, these people traveled here or whatever. And also an interesting thought is it could be tied in with a map system, a mapping type system where people are walking around. They say it's threatening to surpass Twitter in the amount of players. People are basically just mapping with all of this because it's tracking where you're going. And some security experts are saying data can be used, quote, for good and bad. An associate professor at Carnegie Mellon University said that basically, they're going to monetize the data for advertising like Facebook and Google. See, it's not just the little ads on Facebook on the right side or the sponsored posts that are making it billions upon billions of dollars. It's the fact that they get the user data. That's always what these big apps want, is your user data. So they can track you, they can look at your interests. This apparently ties into your Google account and can access all of that. The vast amount of information we're giving up on a daily basis is insane, and we're just accepting it. So that's what this is about. It's not even about, oh, this is some spooky app or whatever. It's about what we've put up with. And that's why it's funny, because I want to talk about this article from Gawker. Oh, such an amazing website, right? Gawker poked fun and did a parody and was like, these conspiracy theorists are afraid to give away all of their information. It says, Pokemon Go, what you need to know about this massive mind control effort. It's a joke. And what happened was they started saying, people are concerned. It must be the evil CIA government and stuff. No, you're allowed to be concerned about giving your data up to these private corporations that may or may not have any affiliation with government institutions that say we can do whatever we want with your data. We're going to track you. That's the whole point of the game, going around tracking you, getting your geolocation. It's okay to be upset. It doesn't even mean that, you're not allowed to go out and have fun or play the game, whatever. But God, are we now just getting to the point where it's fine? You're crazy if you're even mad about it.
The thing is, though, it takes away from social interaction, too. I mean, are we going to have millions of people walking around on the streets like zombies, looking at their phone? Not only are they going to be irradiating themselves with their cell phones, but they're just going to be walking around and they're going to be living in this digital age, in this digital fantasy land. So if you look at the mass effect of it, it really takes away from who we are as the human to human interaction. And you're bringing, not only are you sharing all this information, but you're bringing yourself and your life into a whole nother reality, this digital reality.
It's kind of like how in Germany they have to have stoplights on the sidewalk because people are too busy looking at their phones. They get hit by cars and bump into each other. And hey, I'm a victim too. I'm a self-victim person. I'm on my phone pretty much all the time as well. So I'm, speaking from experience.
Yeah. So just beware out there.
Zombie sometimes too. But anyway, all right. So that's it. Pokemon Go. I mean, it's an unassuming, silly little mobile game. But at the same time, we need to stop standing for this and, everything's fine. Give up your data. You're a bad person and conspiracy theorist if you have a problem with it. I'm Anthony Gucciardi, Dr. Group. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Anthony.
Roger Stone, thank you for joining us. I know you're a busy man. Wow, so much is going on. Where should we start first?
Well, it's an exciting day, Alex. I'm glad to be back with you. I got to tell you the truth. The only reason I'm able to be with you today is living defense and brain force. That's how exhausted I am. But I've never been more excited about any campaign I've been in, and that includes the Ronald Reagan campaigns, which I'm proudest of in my entire career. We are literally on the verge of taking our country back. And as you said, Trump is now pulling ahead, or even in a number of key battleground states. The FBI giving Hillary Clinton a pass. That's not a plus, that's a minus. She may not be going to jail right now, but this has hurt her very badly with the voters because it reinforces the fact that she's inherently dishonest, untrustworthy, and an elite for whom the law just doesn't apply. So even as we speak right now, Jeff Sessions, great patriot, U.S. Senator from Alabama, Newt Gingrich, the former speaker, and Mike Pence are set to sit down with Donald Trump in Indianapolis. Senator Sessions and former Speaker Gingrich are either on their way or have just arrived there. I still think it may be a day or two before we have the candidate's final decision. Only one man knows who's going to be selected for this ticket. And of course, that's Donald Trump. Now, many years ago, former President Richard Nixon told me, on the basis of his own mistakes, look, he said, Stone, don't look for somebody who can help you. Just find somebody who doesn't hurt you. Find somebody who is solid, sure-footed, good policy background, not flashy, but somebody who doesn't hurt you. I think that's sound political advice because in recent times, literally in the last 100 years, with the one exception of Lyndon Johnson, I don't think you can point to any vice presidential candidate who has actually mattered. This race is going to be about Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton. Now, yesterday, the Clinton people purposely floated a rumor that she was looking at a retired admiral for vice president. We have figured out that this is an attempt to bait us in the Trump camp into the selection of General Mike Flynn. I think Flynn is a great man. I think he'd be a great addition to a Trump administration. I'm not sure, with the exception of Eisenhower, that generals are particularly cut out for politics because...
But he was already near the top of the list. I mean, that's...
He was, and it's very clear that Donald has a very high regard for him.
And he is the general that came out and exposed that when he was the head of Defense Intelligence, that Obama was running ISIS and Al-Qaeda. I mean, he's amazing.
No, he's a gutsy, courageous guy. He's a patriotic American. Now, it's interesting that the mainstream media reported that he was a Democrat and that he was, and they construed his comments to say that he is pro-choice.
But he says that's not true now.
Well, in fact, I have, and I will send this to INFOWARS.com, I have found his voter registration record.
Please send it right now. That's huge.
Virginia. First of all, Virginia has no voter registration, so one cannot be a Republican or a Democrat. However, he has voted in a prior Republican primary. CIA Director Flynn, Defense Secretary Flynn, I think he's headed for great things. My own opinion, and this is just my opinion, is that we're probably down to former Speaker Gingrich or Mike Pence, a solid conservative from Indiana. I have my own favorite. I have given the candidate my own private advice. I'm not going to divulge that because you know that is my policy. I would have preferred Jeff Sessions. Frankly, I think Sessions has taken himself out of it, but he may also end up in a Trump cabinet. I think the reason he's headed to Indianapolis is because Donald Trump values his advice so much. So we're very close. It's very exciting. Trump, ever the showman, tells the New York Times yesterday, there may be a few people on his list that have not been publicly reported. And as you know, he is the king of public relations and how to get covered. So we're hunkered down waiting for a decision, but we won't know until the candidate himself makes a decision. And my own personal view is, as this moment, I'm not sure a final decision is made.
That's why he's meeting with the three. He's probably also seeing if they'll work with him, if he picks one of them and the others are then put in cabinet positions. Here's my issue. I don't like to be Machiavellian. I certainly can do it just as good as anybody can. Kind of almost ashamed of myself for that fact. I can get in that headspace at a pretty deep level. But Obviously, at a sick level, I'd like him to pick Gingrich because the establishment wouldn't be so scared because of Gingrich's globalist connections. I've read his writings. I mean, this guy on the surface is this populist conservative, but, I mean, he really is the guy that gave us Boehner all of it. He's got some major problems, but I see the fact that that might make the establishment might not, be as scared of Trump. Then I worry about Trump getting assassinated if he puts Gingrich in. So in a Machiavellian way, I say, okay, I want Trump to win. I hate Hillary so much. Go with the Gingrich. But just, I tell you, it'll be the first thing Trump's done that is establishment-esque. If he does, I would like a Sessions, even if it's politically incorrect, and they try to, attack him from Alabama or stuff 40 years ago, or, somebody like a General Flynn. Now, that's my take. What's your take, Roger Stone?
Well, you're almost reading my mind, Alex. When I used to bring up Gingrich with former President Nixon, he would just snort and say, Rockefeller guy, which tells me a lot. Newt by the way, did run Nelson Rockefeller's campaign in Georgia in 1968. So my own personal view is I agree with you. First of all, I love Jeff Sessions. He would be my first choice. But I'm for whoever Donald Trump is for. And I put my total faith in Trump. I don't think we're going to get a globalist. I don't think we're going to get somebody who doesn't adhere strictly to the Trump agenda.
Oh, yeah, they're licking their lips, man. He brings Gingrich in, that fox sitting there smiling at him like he's a big fat hen. I mean, Trump's got to be, I know Trump's smart. He's crazy if he puts Gingrich in. That's my view.
Nobody recognizes this, but I don't think any candidate for president in our lifetime has wanted to be upstaged. And I think Newt may have that tendency. He's a very smart guy. He's a very glib guy. In fact, I can't think of any subject on which Newt doesn't consider himself an expert. So, Trump, I think, understands the correct role of the vice presidential candidate. There is one caveat, and that is traditional wisdom would say, well, you want an attack dog. You want a guy who will take the partisan attack to the Democrats and specifically to the Clintons. And we know that Newt Gingrich can get under the Clinton skin. I would counter argue that Trump's own pugnacious style makes that unnecessary. He's not afraid to take on the Clintons. He's taken them on ad nauseum, and he's going to take them on.
Sure, you can also argue he knows all the Washington insiders, and he suddenly, the big money will come to him, but that's going to come with strings.
Well, look, this campaign's never going to be funded by big money. It's never going to be funded by Wall Street. What's amazing is that in the month of June, the campaign raised $51 million, mostly from small donors, the 25s, the 100s.
Let me raise this with you, then. Roger Stone's our guest, StoneZone.com. What do we do to reach out to the Sanders people? I don't see how they stole the delegates. They stole the superdelegates. They robbed him. They chose that Hillary would win the day before with Voter News Services, the AP. The primary was a simulation for Democrats. How could Sanders supporters, a good chunk, 30, 40%, how could they not vote so they at least, in the institution of voting, how could they let a new Politburo, the Democratic Party, the Central Committee do this? I mean, it just seems like that we've got to target them with common sense and go, what is your problem? The big money you claim you hate is all against Trump, both parties. And now Sanders has rolled over. You've got to go for Trump.
Yeah, I think one of the keys, of course, Alex, is picking a running mate who was not a cheerleader for the Iraq War. The opening here is that Trump and Sanders are alike on two major issues, war and trade. And I think that is the key to winning those voters. Now, I can't tell you how disappointed I am to see Sanders himself endorsing Hillary Clinton, because it means that everything he said in his campaign about values and progressive values and principle, it was all BS. Bernie Sanders, with his Doc Brown hairdo, turns out to be just another corporate whore, just another slave for Wall Street. Very, very disappointing. I thought that at least he was a man of principle, perhaps leftist principles, but, not motivated by money and greed and power.
And that's it for our show tonight. We do encourage you to go to prisonplanet.tv and get yourself a free trial. You can see the nightly news, the special reports, the rants, all right there at prisonplanet.tv. Well, I'm Jakari Jackson from the InfoWars Command Center, and we'll see you again tomorrow night.